Keith Scheckinger, I did that right?
You did.
Scheckinger, that's good, that's good. And Dawn and Keith, how long have you guys been here at First Lutheran?
About a year and a half.
Yep.
Okay. And how did you happen to come?
I got to know Shelley quite a few years ago.
Okay.
I was kind of struggling with my faith and knew I wanted something different, and so I reached out to Shelley, and she said that I was always welcome, that there's no judgment, the door's always open, walk on in. So she talked me into it, and I sat next to them the first few Sundays that we came. And
okay, and I remember that. Yeah, I remember both of you. Yeah. And so you started coming on Sunday,
Yep.
and then Wednesday night rolls around with all the kids programs, and all of a sudden you guys are like in like crazy. And Keith, you're here on Wednesday nights as well, and you've got a guys group that you work with, right?
Yep, there's a bunch of us guys that kind of sit around and just talk about whatever we feel like and whatever's going on in our lives. And it's been a good way to meet people and get to know some other people in the community that you might not run into otherwise, and that go to the same church.
And so the reason you guys are here is because I had some conversations with Shelley because I wanted to do this sermon series that we just talked about. And we were brainstorming with ideas, and I knew that you had lost a child, but I didn't know the story. And then Shelley reminded me, she said, you really should talk to him. But, look out, because it can be kind of raw, even though it's, 8 years ago, right?
it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. So tell us a little bit about what happened. This is Harper was her name.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we were expecting a child. Riley had some medical issues, and so
And Riley's your oldest.
Right, yep, Riley's our oldest, and she had some medical issues, and so some of them were something that they could detect genetically in utero at 20 weeks, and so we went and got an ultrasound done at 20 weeks and found out she was a girl, and we were super excited about that. She did not have what we were checking for, but then unfortunately they told us that her brain hadn't developed like it was supposed to. At 32 weeks we had found out she had a stroke, so we were up against some more problems. We did quite a bit of testing there towards the end. She wasn't growing very much. The stroke had really done some damage to her brain. We found out she had cataracts, so we knew we were going to have to do eye surgery as soon as she was born. They prepared us for the worst. And so she was born, and delivery went really good. It went fast. And so when she was born, they said she bruised really bad when she was born. They had discovered that the reason that she was so bruised from delivery was that all of her red blood cells had burst. And that was the first we had learned that she had a blood condition where her red blood cells broke down way too fast. She was in the NICU for 21 days. During that time, we went with the eye surgeon from Des Moines, who told us that unfortunately she couldn't help us, that it was too much for her, so that we would have to be sent on to Mayo, which we were okay with. We would deal with it. We got out of there just after New Year's. We were so excited to go home, but very nervous still at the same time, because we were constantly having to check her blood to make sure that her hemoglobin hadn't dropped. We were home for 2 days before she was life flighted out for the first time. I don't know, that started our adventures at Mayo Clinic. Fabulous hospital, but very overwhelming.
Yeah, this was like the little Dutch boy. You didn't have enough fingers to put in the dike, because everything always. If you got this fixed, the problems.
Yes, as soon as we fixed one thing, it was like one more thing was thrown at us.
Yeah.
Once we finally kind of got a grasp on the blood condition, that's when seizures started around 2 months old. I was sitting at the kitchen table one day, and I noticed that she kept just pausing and staring off. And
you said, I can't remember how many you said, there'd be some days that she would have many.
Yes.
The seizures that she would have a lot were they called them infantile spasms. So it'd just be kind of like a brief pause, just like you or I would maybe blink or something like that. She would just kind of turn her head to the side and just have a brief pause, and she would do that 200 to 300 times a day.
Oh my goodness.
Around 4 months old is when bigger seizures started. And then she'd stop breathing. There was a few times that I would have to call out to the hospital and tell them I'm on my way. She's not breathing. I'm pulling up to the front, and get ready. And they were always ready for us. And
Yeah.
it's not fun as a parent to just see your kid just turning blue because
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
not breathing.
Yeah. Yeah. My goodness.
You know, they
Okay.
said if we could get this under control, she could do amazing.
Really?
Yes. And so we started making long-term plans.
We'd worked with the neurologist and kind of changed up medications, and
Yeah.
we're seeing some improvements to where it would decrease the number of small seizures every day, and kind of broaden the span between the larger seizures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so things were
Progressive.
going really well.
Yeah.
I mean, we had talked about making modifications to our home even as she grew. We were working with physical therapy. We were making great strides. She was getting stronger. She was starting to learn how to sit up, and she was starting to learn how to hold her head. And everybody said, that's amazing. Like, if she can do this stuff, she can do it.
Wow.
And so that just made me want to fight even harder for her.
Yeah.
We had some pretty...
Because I know you told me when we talked about this last week, you said that sometimes you felt like you couldn't get close to her.
Yes, it took me a long time to let my guard down and decide to love her, which sounds crazy. It's your child. Why wouldn't you love them? But after they prepared us that we might lose her immediately, we didn't know how long we had.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we didn't want to let our guard down and love her and then just let her get ripped away. And I said, I can't keep doing this. I have to love this child.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, what do you mean? I said, I have stopped myself from loving her out of fear of losing her. And I said, I can't keep doing it.
Yeah.
She's ours.
Yeah.
And
that's amazing. That's so incredibly honest that you can admit that that's where it was.
yeah.
And probably, truth be told, you probably loved her like crazy.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, but it was just hard to show it because it just drew you in so much, and the pain of possibly losing her would be so much. So let's fast forward a little bit. It's she's getting close to 15 months, and she passes away at 15 months.
Yep.
And if I'm remembering right, you said that things were kind of going along swimmingly, but then all of a
You
sudden,
could tell something was up again. We always knew something was up. She just started acting different, started having a few more seizures. Had a decent night, but not... Something was just still off. We got some snow that night. He got up and moved snow that morning. We were expecting a huge snowstorm. And so I called him and I said, we gotta go. And I had us ready, and we never took Riley with us, but that day we took her with us. For whatever reason, we don't know.
wow. And this was the last few days of Parker's life.
Yep, she passed on a Tuesday, and this was a Monday morning.
Oh my goodness.
So the first day she was on the vent up in the ICU. She was doing okay, not amazing, but holding her own. They said things aren't good, and that's when we had to decide how far do we want to push this. They warned us, they'd have to do CPR, if she stopped breathing, and they'd be breaking ribs, and so we needed to decide how far do we push it. We didn't know what to do.
Sure.
And what parent does?
Yeah.
I mean, you want them to do whatever you can.
Yeah.
And so, unfortunately, she didn't make it through. They pushed as much medication as they could to try to get the bleeding to stop, but didn't make it. That was one of the hardest things, is to leave the hospital without your kid.
Yeah.
It was rough.
Walking out with a car seat that you don't need, and where do you put that in your car?
My goodness.
It's things like that people, don't think about or realize when you get home to an empty crib. It's hard.
Yeah.
Everybody tells you, if you pray for something hard enough, God will fix it.
Right.
God didn't fix it for us, which left me so lost.
Yeah.
I didn't know where to turn.
Yeah.
And that, I guess that's what made me, I stopped going to church. After we had the funeral, for one, I couldn't go back. Like, that's the last time I saw my little girl.
Yeah.
But I was so confused, like,
how can God take this child from me?
Yeah.
And I didn't know who to turn to.
Yeah.
And so I stayed away from the church for, well, until a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And so, we would randomly go, but I never felt right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I came here, and things have been totally different.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. And hopefully this place can be a place of healing for you, that both of you with Harper and the rest of your family. And when you and I talked the first time, and by the way, Dawn's doing really well. When we talked about this the first time, I was pretty sure she wasn't going to do this interview because, it was just waterworks over the telephone. But then Dawn came back to me and she said, if this can help somebody else, I definitely want to do this. And I know it's been hard to talk about it tonight.
Yes.
But if you had something to say to someone who's going through a similar experience, struggling with a child, maybe losing a child, what might you say to them?
Definitely reach out to me. Like, we have gone on, like, we've been together for 18 years. We've gone through some hard stuff.
Yeah.
It's tried us as people. I've been as low as you can get.
Mm-hmm.
But I got too much to live for. I have too much to share. I have too many people to help.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let this stuff get me down.
Yeah.
And so if I can help somebody else that's struggling, whether it's with the loss of a child or a child just with major medical issues, it is so taxing on a family or a relationship.
Yeah.
If I can help in any way,
Yeah.
I want to be there.
Well, and in a congregation this size and in a community this size, they're all over the place, but you don't always see them.
Fortunately, our broken path led us to some great people that helped us out, and
Yeah.
hopefully, as we continue down whatever road we're on, we can help others and
Yeah.
use the knowledge that we've learned, and that's
Yeah.
what we can do, I guess.
Yeah. Thank you, folks. That was very courageous to be able to agree to this and to talk about it in such a personal way. Welcome, everybody. Welcome those of you who are online. It's good to be at the church this morning. So this is a sermon series called Walking the Walk, and it's something that I developed over the summer at the suggestion of one of you folks, actually. We want to hear from the parish. We want to hear from the people that sit in the pew. And I think it was a really good idea because, what we're talking about here is we're talking about real life. And real life is sometimes very tough, very difficult, filled with questions, no easy answers. And in the midst of all of that, you have to find a way to walk by faith, by believing in someone you cannot see. But sometimes things are so dark and so black that it looks like that someone who you can't see is nowhere around. You've heard the old saying, Elvis has left the building. That's what it feels like. And that's what Dawn and Keith experienced. Just to recap, they had a little girl eight and a half years ago, right? About 8 years ago. Harper, and she was born, and she had a raft of problems, and Dawn and Keith, they did everything right. They did everything exactly as they should. They gave it their best effort, and Harper didn't make it. And out of that interview, there's two things that just stick with me. The first comes from Dawn, when she said, everyone always told me that if I prayed hard enough, that God would fix this. God didn't fix it. And she said, it left me so lost and so alone. It's nice to believe in something you can't see, but when things are that dark, man, Elvis has left the building. And judging from the way you folks are looking at me right now, you've been there too, in some way, shape, or form. Maybe you haven't lost a child. There are lots of people who have. Lots of people who don't talk about it. They can't talk about it. But even if it's not losing a child, even if it's something else, we've all been there. We've all felt like God has abandoned us. Which leads me to the lesson that Shelley just read. It's a story about the prophet Elijah, and some of you probably know who Elijah is. If not, he's an Old Testament character, and he's a prophet during the time of a king by the name of Ahab. And Ahab's wife is a person who is not part of God's family. She marries into God's family. Her name is Jezebel, and Jezebel comes with this belief in a false god. The god's name is Baal, and she is just like completely sold on Baal, so much so that she's going to sell God's people on Baal. Baal is a rain god. He's going to make the crops grow. He's going to bring fertility to everything, and everyone's going to prosper because of Baal. And so she sets up statues. She does all of these things. And, excuse me, and Elijah is watching all of this. And he just wants to do the right thing. He has to do the right thing. And so he calls Ahab and Jezebel on the carpet on this thing, and then not once but twice proves that Baal is just a statue. Baal is no God. Baal can't bring the water. Baal can't raise the crops. He can't do any of these things. And he proves it twice. And Jezebel, this sort of outsider who's bringing in this brand new God that she wants to tout as her own, and obviously that makes her more powerful too. If her God works, then she's more powerful as well. Well, she's embarrassed by it. And she is mad as all get out at Elijah, and so she sends him a message. By this time tomorrow, you're dead. And so Elijah is on the run. And he is lost, and he is alone. And this God that he's been doing all the right things for, well, Elvis has left the building. So he's one day out, and he's in the wilderness. He's homeless. He doesn't have so much as a tent to put over his head. And he lays down underneath a broom tree. And he wonders where God is. He just says, I just want to die. And then he falls asleep. And when he wakes up, he notices beside him there are these hot cakes and a jar of water. And he eats and he drinks. And this happens twice. And then he goes to a cave next. At least he has some shelter this time, right? And when he's in the cave, he calls out to God, where are you? I'm looking for you. You left me alone. I'm all by myself. I'm on the run. I am lost. And you are nowhere to be seen or heard. And there's nothing. And then comes a wind. A wind so great that the rocks around him start crumbling. No God. And then there's an earthquake. The ground beneath his feet shake. No God. And then there's a fire. Everything around him is burning. No God. The wind, the earthquake, the fire, it's a symbol of what's been happening to Elijah. His world has been rocked. His world has been shaken. His world has been torched. No God. And then finally, there is silence. And in the silence, Elijah hears this tiny, tiny voice. Almost a whisper. Well, finally God shows up. Except it isn't finally God shows up. God had been there all the time. Elijah just couldn't see it, just couldn't hear it. He was there when Jezebel made her threats. God was there. He's there when Elijah runs and finds himself homeless under a tree. God's there. He's there in the cake and the jar of water. It isn't much. It's just a morsel, but it's enough for him to put one foot in front of the other. He's there. Elijah can't see it. Elijah can't hear it. He's in the cave when he shouts out to God, "Where are you?" And there is no answer. And he's there in the wind when the world around him is crumbling, and he's there when the ground beneath his feet shake, and he's there when his world is torched. He's there. Never once does God leave. Elijah can't hear him, can't see him. He's there all the time, watching over him. He feeds him even though Elijah can't see him. He guides him from one place to the next, even though Elijah doesn't know he's there. And he speaks to him, even though the din of all of these awful things that are happening to him, these monstrous things, is so loud that he can't hear the voice through all that's going wrong. He's there. He's there. That leads me to the second thing that I noticed about the interview with Dawn and Keith. And it was towards the end, Keith made the statement that this has been a broken path these last 8 years. And it has led us to some very, very interesting people, good people, interesting places. Kind of like Elijah, right? And then it gives the two of them a new purpose. As they walk from a place where they can't hear or see a God and it feels like they've been abandoned, to a place where now they can be an advocate for the God that they know is with them and has saved them even in this awful trial. Keith, Dawn, I submit to you that God has always been there. I also submit to you, and this is important especially for Dawn to hear, God didn't take the child, but he took the tragedy of that death and he used the journey that you would have to take to bring you to this time and to this place and to bring you a healing that you never dreamed possible. So much so that that healing makes you an advocate for the one that just a couple of years ago you could not see, did not know if he was there. And now, my friends, I turn to all of you, because all of you have had similar kinds of experiences. Like I said, maybe it wasn't a child, but you know what it is. It's real life. Too often in the Christian faith, we have all these easy answers, but life is not easy. And the easy answers sound hollow, and they sound wooden, and they don't make any sense because they're this deep, but your problems are clear down here. It takes a God who comes down here, who walks with you in a place where you can't see him, a place where it's so dark and so despairing. The rocks are crumbling around you. The earth is shaking beneath you. Your world is being torched. Elvis has left the building. Oh, no, he's still there. He's still there. And he will walk with you. And he will take that journey with you. And even though you can't see him, and even though you can't hear him, know that he is there. My friends, walking the walk is knowing and understanding that even when God is gone, even when he's left the building, it seems like, oh, he's there. Walk with him. He's walking with you. And for that we give him thanks and praise. Amen.